It was a Sunday filled with anticipation and tension as the Miami Dolphins took on the Houston Texans in a crucial matchup. The game, while important for both teams, would soon be overshadowed by a moment of tragedy that no one could have predicted. A rookie wide receiver, Grant Dubose, had just begun to carve out his place in the NFL, a dream come true after being drafted in the 7th round. His journey to the league had been a long one, filled with obstacles, hard work, and dedication, but on this fateful Sunday, it seemed like that journey would take a heartbreaking and sudden detour. The atmosphere in the stadium was electric as the game progressed, both teams vying for supremacy in what promised to be an intense battle. Dubose, a relative newcomer, had only played in 2 previous games, but already, he had shown flashes of the talent that had earned him a spot on the Dolphins roster. As the third quarter began, the game was still very much in the balance, with both teams fighting tooth and nail for every yard. Tua Tagovailoa, the Dolphins' young and talented quarterback, had been connecting with his receivers throughout the game, looking for opportunities to push the ball downfield. Dubose, eager to prove himself, was ready for the challenge. The Dolphins' offense had been inconsistent up to that point, but with Dubose on the field, there was a sense that they could turn things around. Tagovailoa, with his usual poise and precision, dropped back to pass, his eyes scanning the field for his open receiver. As he surveyed the scene, he spotted Dubose streaking down the sideline, a potential game-changing play unfolding before them. Without hesitation, Tua released the ball, launching it downfield in Dubose's direction. Seemed like the perfect moment for Dubose to make his mark in the game. He tracked the ball as it soared through the air, positioning himself perfectly for the catch. But just as he was about to haul it in, disaster struck. Houston Texans cornerback Kalen Bullock, who had been covering Dubose throughout the play, closed in on the receiver with incredible speed. The hit was brutal, delivered with full force as Dubose was still in midair, arms outstretched, attempting to secure the pass. Collision was violent, the sound of it reverberating through the stadium. Dubose, unable to protect himself in the air, was sent crashing to the ground, his body twisting unnaturally upon impact. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The ball fell incomplete, but that hardly seemed important in the aftermath of the collision. Dubose remained motionless on the turf, a sight that immediately sent shockwaves through the crowd and both teams. The medical staff rushed onto the field, their faces grim as they assessed the situation. Tension was palpable as fans, coaches, and players alike held their breath, hoping for the best but fearing the worst. It was clear from the start that this was no ordinary injury. The urgency of the medical response was apparent, and as the seconds ticked by, it became increasingly clear that Dubose was in serious distress. Teams' medical personnel worked quickly and efficiently, but there was a sense of unease that hung in the air. As they examined Dubose on the field, it was evident that his injury was not something they could simply treat on the spot. For several minutes, the decision was made to remove his helmet, a step that indicated the severity of the injury. But that was only the beginning. The medical team had to cut off his jersey to better treat him, an image that would be etched in the minds of fans and players alike. The game, for all its excitement and drama, was put on hold as the medical staff worked diligently to stabilize Dubose. For what seemed like an eternity, the stadium was silent, save for the sounds of the medical professionals at work. Fans who had been cheering just moments earlier now sat in stunned silence, uncertain of the fate of the young player who had been part of their team's future. The Dolphins players, too, were visibly shaken, their faces etched with concern as they gathered near the sideline. As the minutes dragged on, many players from both teams stood together, their heads bowed in prayer. It was a scene of solidarity, as both teams recognized the seriousness of the moment and the importance of supporting Dubose in his time of need. The entire Dolphins squad, their emotions raw, circled together in a show of unity, hoping for a miracle for their teammate. Texans players, too, stood in silence, understanding the gravity of the situation. It was a rare moment in the world of professional sports, where the fierce competition between the teams seemed to fade into the background, replaced by a shared sense of humanity and concern for the well-being of one of the league's youngest players. The injury, which had caused such a long delay, became a symbol of the brutal reality of professional football. While the game was important, it was secondary to the health and safety of the players. The spectacle of athletes competing at the highest level was temporarily suspended in favor of something far more significant: the hope that Dubose would be okay. Fans, players, and coaches alike couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment, understanding that, at the end of the day, it was not the outcome of the game that would define this Sunday, but rather the condition of Dubose. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Dubose was loaded onto a stretcher and carted off the field. The silence that had enveloped the stadium was replaced by the sound of a collective sigh of relief as the young player was taken to the hospital. He was transported to a nearby medical facility, where he was reported to be in stable condition. While the news of his stability was a welcome relief, the seriousness of the injury remained. Dubose's season, and perhaps his career, was now in jeopardy, and the uncertainty of his future loomed large. As the game resumed, the players on the field tried to refocus, but it was clear that the events of the day had left a lasting impact on them. The Dolphins, especially, found it difficult to shake the emotional weight of the situation. The game itself continued, but the outcome seemed almost irrelevant. Texans went on to win 20-12, but the victory felt hollow. No one was celebrating, and the emotions of the players were raw. The scene on the field, where Dubose had once been, was a stark reminder of the physical toll that football takes on its players. In the days following the injury, fans and players alike expressed their concerns for Dubose, sending messages of support and well wishes. Social media was flooded with messages, with many calling for the league to do more to protect players from such brutal collisions. The hit by Bullock, while incidental in nature, raised questions about the risks of the game and the need for greater emphasis on player safety. Some fans pointed to a recent controversial hit by linebacker Aziz Al-Shair on Trevor Lawrence, which had also resulted in a serious injury, as evidence that the NFL needed to take a closer look at how hits like this were being handled. Despite the controversy, Bullock was not ejected from the game, though he was penalized for the hit, a decision that did little to quell the anger of those who believed it was a dangerous play. For Dubose, the future remained uncertain. The young player, who had made a promising start to his NFL career, now faced the reality of a long and difficult recovery process. His injury, while not life-threatening, was significant enough to raise concerns about his ability to continue playing at the highest level. The Dolphins, already dealing with a challenging season, would now have to adjust to life without their rookie wide receiver for the foreseeable future. The loss of Dubose, who had shown flashes of potential, was a tough blow to the team's already slim playoff hopes. In the weeks and months that followed, Dubose's recovery would be the focus of fans and the Dolphins organization alike. As he worked tirelessly to rehab and return to the field, he would face the challenge of rebuilding both his body and his confidence. The road ahead would be long, but for Dubose, the support of his teammates, coaches, and fans would be crucial as he navigated this difficult chapter in his young career. For now, the only thing that mattered was his health, and with the Dolphins rallying behind him, there was hope that one day he would return to the field and continue his journey in the NFL.